We are back with another episode for this podcast. And we're shooting it straight from my room. First and foremost, I want to send my condolences to those who are participating in the California fire and the wildfires. Some nasty stuff over there. Yeah, I've seen all of it through social media. I've seen it through the news. It's crazy. One side of the U.S. is currently snowing. I have to go outside and get the snow off my car. On the other side of the U.S., it's burning down. It's it's crazy. But today I wanted to kind of bring attention to those of us who are looking from within, but also looking at others. The love of your life, if you will. And there's a TikTok I saw where she was saying how the love of your life is the love of your life. You know, if you love your life the way that you have it, that is the love of your life. And I think that's true. You have to love every moment in your life right now and trust you'll be okay. And a lot of people don't understand that to be happy, it isn't a feeling. It's an action. It's not a destination. It's something you acquire along the way. And if you treat happiness like a feeling and like a destination, happiness is a trap. You aren't always going to be happy, you know. I think a lot of times we think that to be happy is to, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of times we think to be happy is like to be content. And I think that you're not always going to be happy. You aren't always going to be feeling your best every day. You aren't always going to have people in your corner. You're not always going to always feel love from every which way. But the one thing that you do control is that happiness is a practice. Happiness is waking up and exploring yourself in meaningful ways, even if you don't want to. And at some point, you start to believe in the practices you have set up for yourself. You know, everyone always likes to talk about how love is a gamble when it comes to loving other people or when it comes to being in relationships or navigating friendships. But loving yourself is not a gamble, it's a certainty. There's no risk in loving yourself. There's no one else to hurt you or to trigger you. Um, every decision is yours and yours alone. Loving yourself could be looking in the mirror and smiling. You know, loving yourself could be consoling yourself, you know, during sad times. And it's just one of those things where there's nothing that you can change about the fact that you have yourself to console. You know, you may not be where you want to be, but you can always be who you want to be. And that's one of the most one of the most underrated things that I've ever heard in my life, you know. It's so much easier. It's so much easier to be who you want to be. At some point, if you are being who you want to be, you'll get to where you want to be. And life will still run its course. But the thing about, you know, loving yourself is you have the rest of your life to be in love with yourself. You know, we come into this world alone, we die alone. Why not use the time that we have with ourselves to do so? Embrace that fact alone. that at the end of the day, no matter what it is, like we are still stuck with only loving ourselves. And it's crazy because the more that we love ourselves, the easier it will be to love others. I don't know why my camera keeps shaking. We're going to try and move something really quickly. Move that. There we go. That makes me feel better. But hopefully, when it comes to loving yourself, hopefully that there isn't always going to be times where you're like, yeah, I I'm happy here. I'm happy there because life is unpredictable. It's almost inhuman to think that you're going to tackle every situation the best way that you possibly can. I can't imagine being able to compartmentalize, in a sense, everything that I've ever been through. It isn't something that's like a 10 out of 10 because I'm still human. You still have to grow, you still have to learn. And if everything was meant for you to not necessarily learn something from, but persevere, what is the point of growth? It's a very simple concept for me. I've never been someone who thinks that growth stops at a certain age. I've always known that every single day that I wake up, I get up, I go to work, whatever the case may be, is another day that I can grow more. Doesn't mean I always use it as such, but I know that my growth is something that is an independent variable. I can be as great as however I think I am. There will come things in life that will be outside of my control, but I dictate how great I choose to be. And it's one of those things that's like we have to understand it about ourselves. And it kind of bleeds over into relationships in that matter because the way that you understand yourself afflicts how you understand others. It afflicts how you love others as well. It sucks because everyone tries to make love like this absolute thing, like it's one way or the other, and I think that there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of gray area because I think that love is different for everyone within reason. Within reason. But hopefully, when it comes to the love of your life, and we're not talking about ourselves now, we're talking to the person that God puts in front of you. Hopefully, in your God given timeline, if it is in your heart to desire, God will place someone that loves you in your life. And to those of you who are lovers, the ones that love hard, remember to love yourself just as hard. The love of your life is the magnum opus moment. You know, it's it's the plateau, if you would. Loving yourself is not a risk, but yet the love that you have for another person is a risk. That for the right person will always be worth the reward. We always sit in this honeymoon phase. We fall in the process. We fall in love with the process of love. But once it goes away is when love starts. You have to be unrelenting. In any given situation, you will always find a reason to leave. And that's not even just about love. That's about your job. That's about your work. It's about family. It's about friends. It's about conflict. It's about fearing growth. You will always find a reason to leave. But you'll find someone worth staying. Love isn't self-seeking. One of the biggest misconceptions is that love will only bring out the best in you. And that's not the case at all. Love will make you face the worst parts of yourself and your partner, as well as bring out the best in you. How else can you be challenged? How else do we persevere through conflict if love is only to bring out the best in you? I think that love can bring out the best in you for you to change and for you to grow by I think love can bring out the worst in you if you're restricting yourself to growth. That's what I meant to say. Sometimes love brings out parts of you that you haven't healed. And it's one of those things. It's not Love will make you face the worst parts of yourself and your partner as well. And love is an action. Love is a practice, just like happiness is. Just like, when you practice a sport, if you don't practice, of course you'll lose the skill. Of course you'll lose the talent in a sense. It will die out. Love is an understanding. Love is like, what's the best way I can phrase this? Love is like seasons. You forgive, you heal, you cover, you love, you accept. The way that I think about it is that love is like when it's cold outside, you put a jacket on. You know, when it's summer, you wear shorts. It's adapting to who that person is in that moment and changing how your love grows and shows up throughout their seasons. And they would do the same to yours. For all those who believe that love is a feeling, I can tell you that in ways that you'll understand that love is hearing someone's laughter in every corner, always smelling things that remind you of them. Love is remembering their touch and it's still warm to you. And some people run from love, but don't despair because there will always be someone who stays. And love is sand. Love is sand in the way that if you hold it too tightly, you will lose it. And you hold it too loose, it'll blow away. But hold it gently, and it'll remain in your hands. And if it doesn't, and I mean truly if it doesn't, then know there is love still in store for you. There always will be. And a lot of people forget that. The love of your life includes your life and includes the person that you'll spend the rest of your life with. And you have to be unrelenting for both. Loving yourself is putting your needs at a high pedestal and thinking that you will always be worth whatever it is that you attract. Well, not attract. You'll always be worth whatever it is that you desire. Loving someone else is putting them above yourself. Obviously, not always, and not from a place of lack either. Never put your spouse above yourself from a place that you are not enough. A lot of people think that love is this self seeking, perfect harmony where as long as you are in alignment with what you're doing, there's no compromise needed. There's nothing that you have to change. There's nothing that you have to alter. There's nothing that you have to process. Because in a sense, love will be a compromise at some point. If you take two busy people who have a certain schedule, you have to choose your partner. You can't think it'll fall in your lap because that's not how it works. The same way, equally, you can't expect for love to come to yourself if you stop choosing it. You have to keep choosing it. Love the people around you the same way you would love yourself. And if you are out of alignment with the way that you love the people around you, figure out what it is that you don't love about yourself. And for those of you who overextend that love, that's still a form of missing alignment with yourself because it means that you are starving yourself to feed others. There has to be a balance. Loving yourself is the balance. Loving yourself is what stops you from staying too long or leaving too early. Loving yourself is the perfect harmony. And it's not to say that you have to be completely whole or completely healed to be involved with another person because sometimes our partners remind us what loving ourselves look like through them. I know sometimes for me to have an insecurity, sometimes my partner would always remind me to love myself in that way. And it's not through telling me, it's just through actions. You know, but also don't rely on external validation in that sense. Your partner isn't always going to be able to validate you in that regard. And that's something that comes with the territory of self love, you know. Whether your partner's there or not, those things should not change about yourself. But at the same time, they will. You won't always feel the most confident. Your partner should reassure you, but they won't always. No one's 100% doing anything because if that's the case, we would all be perfect. And what is the point of being perfect if we have to experience growth? And I say that to say for those of you who are wondering if that person is for you, or wondering there's so many pieces to navigate, I ask you this. If you are religious, let's do two things. If you are religious and your relationship with God is consistent, if your relationship with God is a routine that is filled with friendship, filled with love, if you are able to talk to God about yourself and many of the other things, if you're able to center God around your life, and the person that you're with is able to center God around theirs, and you guys come together and you guys pray together, and you guys sit and talk to God, see if He can ordain it, you're already on the right track. But I can only say what love is like for me. Love for me is hmm, love for me is being the number one cheerleader in someone else's life. Love for me as a man is to die for someone, to lay down for someone. That there are worse things. Love for me is to be in awe. Love for me is not an emotion all the time, but love for me is a certainty. There will come a point in time in your life where certainty will be there, and it won't always be there. It's not to say that I won't have doubts in my lifetime. It's not to say that I won't have concerns or even like times where I'm like, okay, well, is this something that I need to be in? But it stops being a feeling. You would rather not experience what life is like without that person. And I mean that the most rawest way possible. Love for me is praying for someone instinctually. Love for me is thinking about what I can do for that person without them thinking about it themselves. Love for me is how can I fill in the blanks. Love for me is how can I fill in the gaps. Love for me is lightening the load. And I think for all of us, you know, and it's not to say that I'm perfect either. Love for me is also I could be love for me can be also detrimental to me. Love for me can be anxious. Love for me can be insecure. There are times that we do fluctuate between those things, but again, that balance within yourself is what takes care of that. And sometimes our partner, yes, can contribute towards it. But that's the whole point of being taking the risk of love is forgiveness. Every event can't be worth leaving over. Every argument can't be worth crashing out over. Every situation shouldn't make you come to question what it is that's occurring between the two of you. Because that means that either you're in misalignment with them or you're in misalignment of yourself. And both are problematic, obviously. But the love of your life is it's something that not many of us will experience if it's not on your heart. Some people will go the rest of their lives chasing whatever career they have that's the most important thing to them. And I commend you for that. I commend you because if it's not in your heart to desire, why be judged for it? You know, a lot of people will judge people and be like, no, you should do this, you should do that. Some people aren't meant to experience love. You'll know if you're meant to experience love because the desire in your heart will be there. You'll know that you're meant to experience it. And even if you aren't right now in the moment, Even right now, me saying that, it could change. You know, I'm only human just like you are, but God is always in control. So if God says, you know what, I'm putting that desire in your heart now, then that's just what it is. I ask all of you to enjoy that process. You know, a lot of us are, like I told you guys the other episode, you know, a lot of us, when we look in the mirror, remind ourselves of our parents and how our parents loved us equates to how we love other people, whether it's to be alike, whether it's to be different. It's a response, it's a reaction to the action. And you have to figure that out. So, in this form, and in this podcast, and in this episode, what I want those of you to do, especially for those of you who are afraid of love, because it's something that I've realized recently that although I have been someone who knows what love is, who knows how to chase love, who knows how to stay in love, who knows how to stay in love with themselves, stay in alignment with themselves. It's not to say I always had that skill down pat. I don't. I'm still learning. Trust and believe I'm still learning, as we all are. But for those of you who run from it, for those of you who try to sabotage it, I want you to think about how you treat yourself. Replace your partner with yourself, and would you want to do that to them? And I feel like that oftentimes, at least for me, when I think about self sabotaging or when I think about criticizing, or it doesn't always work. Again, like I said, it doesn't always work. But what I think about is replace your partner with yourself, and would you do that to yourself? That is one of the biggest metrics of love that can provide the biggest reassurance that love can provide. If you don't think you're treating your partner right, put your actions next to yourself, and would you do that to yourself? It's the easiest way to hold yourself accountable. Then ask your partner how they feel. Because again, they may not be you, but it's a start. It's a start. If you start by saying, I would never do this to myself, and so I'm going to treat my partner a certain way, all there's room for is growth. That's all there's room for. We fall short, you pick yourself up, back up, you apologize, y'all come to a point of forgiveness, we move forward. But for those of you who have the desire in their heart to experience the love of their life, take heed that free will is a thing, and you can ruin what God has given you. And I don't mean that to make you run away even further or to even hold it closer, because, like I said, love is sand. Love is always sand. You hold it too close, it will fall between your fingers. If you hold it too loosely, it will blow away. You have to hold it gently because you hold yourself gently. With all the snow going on one side, with all the fires going on the other, love seems to be the one thing that seems to be superior in this life. It isn't money, it isn't status, it isn't capital, it isn't the external validation, it isn't the hatred, it isn't the pettiness. It seems to be love. Love seems to stand at the top of it all. You know, a lot of people say love is not enough, and I think that if we're talking about the feeling, yes, but if we're talking about the action, no. Love is an action that will always be enough if you make the actions. There, of course, there has to be trust. Of course, there has to be respect. Of course, there has to be honesty. It has to be integrity. There has to be transparency. But love as an action should be the number one thing of all. That's what God shows us the most. For God, love is an action. For God, love is sacrifice. For God, love is submission. For God, love is obedience. And I feel like we have to emulate that. So I ask you guys, in this time period where people are struggling, people are losing housing, people are traveling, having delays, people are stuck, people have snow that's not allowing them to get from point A to point B, people who are homeless on the street can't find warmth through the cold. I ask that you guys express love in the form that manages you. Spread love. In a time period that you are struggling, give love away. No matter how many knives get in your back, hand out roses. It's not to say to hold people accountable. It's not to say to hold yourself accountable. But what I'm saying is that in the time period such as this, and it's only going to get worse, I promise you the importance of love will not diminish. And I mean that across the board, whether it's yourself, whether it's other people, the importance of love will not diminish. So stay in tune. Stay in tune with yourself and your others around you. Remind people you love them. Remind yourself that you love yourself. And there's ways to do that. You know, a lot of people think that you have to experience love languages with other people, but you can experience love language with yourself. It's something I've learned recently. You know, doing your skincare routine, that's physical touch. Taking yourself out on a date, that's acts of service. Going to a movie, you know, that's quality time. Reading a book by yourself is quality time. Compliments, affirmations, same thing. Words of affirmations is affirmations. You can breathe the love back into yourself. And I want y'all to keep that in mind because one thing I'm going to do in this podcast is be authentic. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be genuine because I think in the time period that we're at right now, love has to sit at the top and the authenticity of it has to sit at the top. And the genuinity, is that a word? The genuineness has to sit at the top. And I hope that for all of you who will cross that threshold and you have moments of weakness, give yourself grace and forgiveness, but hold yourself accountable. Do right by the people around you. And if you do wrong, try your best to make it right within yourself. Because forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. So you don't carry it with you for the rest of your life. And it's not a perfect fix. It's not always an easy fix to do, but it's something that has to happen. So y'all take care. Stay frosty or stay cool or avoid what needs to be done, but stay in tune with your love across the board.